the Republican Party forms and develops, and it develops out of this issue of slavery and the tensions around that during this time period in the 1850s. The issue of slavery caused tension within the political parties, and actually led to the dissolution or the kind of breaking apart of one of the major parties of this time period, the Whig Party. So we talked about kind of when George Washington first becomes president, right, there is no solid political parties, but then that kind of changes, and you get the Federalists, who supported a stronger central government, and then you have the Democratic Republicans, who supported kind of more state rights and smaller government. As time goes on, those parties change, right? And with Andrew Jackson, we kind of have then in the 1830s, you have the development of the kind of modern Democratic Party as we know it today. The other kind of major competing party at that time in the 1830s was the Whig Party, which kind of falls apart then when we lead up to the Civil War. Right, once that Whig Party falls apart, it allows new parties to come into place and kind of take over some of that power. And since slavery is what caused the dissolution of the Whig Party, slavery and abolition becomes one of the key components of those new parties that are forming. So this is kind of a helpful list just to kind of show you the different parties that existed and how they kind of come to power. The Democrats formed in 1854, as well as the Know Nothing Party. A few years later, they have the Free Soil Party, the Democratic Party, as well as the Whigs. And on the right-hand side, kind of lists some of the major parts of it. All right, so again, in 1852, is kind of where the demise of the Whig Party begins. In this 1852 election, the Whigs supported the Compromise of 1850, which upset many people in the South because it felt like they were limiting the expansion of slavery, even though it allowed for some expansion. And so the Whigs begin to lose some popularity in the South. And it's actually the Democratic, my apologies, I messed that up. The Whigs kind of were on the northern side, right? Ultimately sided on the northern state side, so they lost support in the South. The Democrats, who were squarely in support of slavery in that system, actually win the election. A man named Franklin Pierce. Shortly after that, in 1854, we have the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and the Whig Party, which was not just a particular regional party, they were split on this decision, right? The northern Whigs in the northern states opposed the Kansas-Nebraska Act because it violated the Missouri Compromise and the spirit of the Compromise of 1850 and allowed for states to kind of choose for themselves. And southern Whigs supported it because it allowed for the possibility of the expansion of slavery. Another party during this time period that emerges is the Know Nothing Party. And so we have the issue of slavery happening, and obviously it's predominantly in the South. Like I mentioned in a previous video, in the mid-19th century, the middle 1800s, you have large-scale immigration, first from Ireland and Germany, and then eventually you'll have, in the later part of the 19th century, from Italy and Eastern Europe. And so out of this kind of fear of the arrival of the new immigrants, many of whom were Catholic, this image here shows you a representation of the Pope and bishops and priests on a boat trying to storm and attack America, right? The good Protestants of America. And this fear of Catholics and this fear of immigrants is what forms another political party known as the Know Nothing Party, or formerly known as the American Party. So it sounds all nice and patriotic, right? The American Party, but they were kind of a bigoted group of people. The name comes from the fact that it was originally a secret society, and so if everyone was ever questioned about it, they were supposed to respond, "I know nothing," right? And that's how it becomes known as the Know Nothing Party. And they're defined by their nativism. And nativism is the dislike and disapproval of large-scale immigration. Nativists have anti-immigrant, anti-Catholic, and anti-Jewish sentiments, because Catholics at this time were largely coming in, and then to a lesser degree Jewish people. And the fear was that Catholics would not listen to the President of the United States, but would follow the orders of the Pope, right? That was kind of this bizarre sense that they would do that, right? And many people believe that, and it led to, a pretty popular party. They don't really gain popularity or success at the national level, but in local and state elections, they do manage to get some people elected. Another party is a party known as the Free Soilers, and that name kind of hints at their opinion on slavery. They believe that the new soil, the expansion westward, should be free. So they oppose the expansion of slavery into new territories. A former president at the time, a man named Martin Van Buren, who was the 8th president of the United States, actually runs again in 1848 on this party. He doesn't win any electoral votes, but he does manage to win 10% of the popular vote. So a significant minority supported him. Free soilers are not necessarily abolitionists, though, right? They weren't about maybe abolishing slavery. They just wanted to not let it expand. They wanted to kind of benefit economically from small farms out in the new states, not these large slave-holding plantations. And then lastly, we have the Republican Party, formed in 1854 in the state of Michigan. They formed as opponents to this idea of slavery expansion. They opposed the Kansas-Nebraska Act and the idea of popular sovereignty, but they were split on what they wanted to do with the issue of slavery. The more conservative members of the party wanted to kind of go back to that Missouri Compromise, which made that 36 parallel line the boundary, and let land south of that allow slavery, and let land north of it oppose it. And then the more extreme for the time period side, you have the radical Republicans who supported abolition. So the first time that Republicans run a national candidate, presidential candidate, is in 1856, and they nominate a man named John Fremont. The Know Nothing Party nominates a former president named Millard Fillmore, and then Democratic candidates have a man named James Buchanan. So there's three major people running for office, which kind of causes a lot of division in the country. But really, it's only the Democratic candidate who can get truly national audience because he has support among immigrants in northern cities and the southern slaveholders. So he wins the election, but not with the majority of the popular vote. And the Republicans finished second with 33% of the vote. So they're pretty close to kind of being a major party at this election. And they're going to come back in 1860, and they're going to win the presidential election with the election of Abraham Lincoln.